In this exercise, we're going to build our first web page from scratch using Visual Studio Code. As you can see, I have Visual Studio Code open, and so the first thing we want to do is create a blank HTML page. I'll do that by choosing New File. I have a new file now, but I need to save it as a HTML file. So I'll say Save As, and I'll use the file name index.html. And now the editor is recognizing this as a HTML file. Let's see what that looks like in our browser. So the file is saved. I'll go to my local disk. I'll select the file and open with my browser. And as you can see, it's blank. So it is picking up the file from my local disk, index.html. It's just the file has no contents. I'll just leave this side by side with Visual Studio Code so we can see everything together at once. There you go. So now we're ready to add some HTML to our file. The first thing we need in our file is the DTD tag, or the document type declaration. And as you recall, what this does is it's information for the browser to tell it what version of HTML we're running. And in our case, this is HTML5 represented by the value HTML. Great. Now the next thing we need to add is the HTML element. And that takes up the rest of the file, meaning that everything else we add after this will be contained within the HTML element. We still don't have anything visible on the page, as you can see here when I refresh my browser. It's still empty because we have no content yet over here on our HTML page. So let's move on. The HTML element typically has two children. The first one is the head element, and that's typically followed by the body element. The head element contains mostly data that isn't visible to the user. Sometimes we call that metadata. However, there is one exception to this, and that is the element called title. And this is an element that has content that will be visible to the user. If I put in a title element, and inside it I add some content, my first page for example. If I save my page now and then refresh over here in the browser, you will see that that content, my first page, it shows up as the title of this page inside the browser. And that title is also used for indexing and for web browser history and so on. That's the name of the page that will show up. So that's a visible element that's inside head. Okay, let's add some content to the page body. So in between the body element, I'll just add some text. And if I save my page and refresh my browser once more, we'll see my text up here has shown up. And we can do lots more inside this body. For example, if I was to change this so that let's add another tag, use one of the HTML headings tags, and if I save my file and refresh again, you can see how that text changes its look based on the tags that enclose it. And HTML5 defines multiple heading tags. I'll try another one. There's another one, and when I save it and refresh, you can see the different sizes. So that's it. We have our first web page built from scratch. We defined a title here, which showed up here, and we also defined content in the body of our page, which shows up like this based on the various tags that we've used. Now we have only used a tiny fraction of the HTML elements and tags that are available to you, but hopefully this shows you just how easy it is to get started.